By 1882, Billy the Kid has been shot and killed by Sheriff Pat Garrett, and Jesse James suffers the same fate courtesy of a couple of his friends. On the 15th of June in that year of 1882, Alfred Horner, ex-file cutter, now basket maker, age 25, marries Emma Blodgett. She is the daughter of German immigrants who live on a farm on the Racine-Kenosha County Line Road, a short way west of Lathrop Road. The Blodgett farm is almost adjacent to the almost half-century in the future homestead of the yet unborn son of Emma's Howard. A footnote here. Emma has younger sisters, Lily and Eva. They are the aunts we went to visit back on a very hot day in Chicago in the 1930s. In my earlier account, I didn't know how they were related to my family. How Alfred and Emma met is unknown to me or to my 91-year-old Horner aunts, Grace and Leon. Alfred and his cousin John are still making baskets at the Racine Basket Manufacturing Company. And that is the way it shows in the Racine City Directory of 1882. That publication also shows the Horner brothers, file makers, at 520 Villa Street. Final convincing proof that John and Richard are brothers. September 17, 1884, a son is born to Alfred and Emma. They name him Howard Alfred Horner. They are living at 918 11th Street. Alfred is earning his living making baskets, and Emma, the farm girl, soon gets restless with city life. And apparently she begins to find solace in a bottle, a trait apparently common to the hard-drinking Blodgett family. Al's dad, Richard, Uncle John, and cousin Alfred are still cutting files by hand. In 1885, just a year later, John F. is gone from Racine, a victim of the new machines that cut files better and cheaper. The trade of cutting files by hand is over, and I suspect the Horner brothers' business expires worthless. His son, file cutter John's Alfred, has joined the basket makers, his brother John Jr. and cousin Alfred. It looks like the file cutter trade is absolutely dead. Richard still lists it as his trade, but also adds that he is now a machinist as well. He is 58 years old. The same time the Washington Monument is dedicated in Washington, D.C. by President James Garfield, soon to be replaced by Grover Cleveland. In 1890, there is news of trouble on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation where Sitting Bull still lives. The U.S. Army is called in to calm down the proud but defeated Sioux. What follows is a blot on the record of American treatment of the people displaced by the European invasion of North America. But in the same year, twin daughters are born to Alfred and Emma on March 3, 1890, to join 6-year-old brother Howard. The girls are named Myrtle and Hazel. I have talked about these ladies, whom I knew in my youth and early manhood. Grandfather Richard barely gets to know them before he dies, at the age of 63 on May 1st, 1891. Did lead poisoning possibly play a role in the relatively early death? Don't know. They bury Richard in Mound Cemetery in one of the 5 grave sites purchased by his widow Harriet at the time. According to Shirley Fritz Mooney of Milton, Wisconsin, who was his great-granddaughter and who knew his son Alfred far better than I, says a rather elaborate family monument is installed crossways atop the middle lot of the 5 purchased. The rectangle across the middle of Lot 8 that we see on this chart of the grave sites indicates its location. But Shirley informs me it is made of sandstone, and before many years the soft rock disintegrates. Now, she says, there is no marker. When I learn of this, I am faced with a conundrum. What then is that monument I stumbled across in 1976? For what was it intended? Why is it not in use, marking the grave of my namesake? The chiseled name and the dates are correct. The mystery deepens. The U.S. Census records of 1890 have been lost in a fire or something, so the paper trail for the next few years is a little sketchy. But we are getting into more familiar territory. It appears our basket makers fall into hard times just as our file cutters have. I think both enterprises are gone, or at least diminished by 1890, pushed out by new machines. Richard, now in poor health and dies as noted above the following year. John, after a brief residence in Summers, has bought a farm in central Wisconsin's Juneau County and has gone to that hard scrabble territory with his young wife and their growing second family. So what caused John to take the equity of the home at 1220 9th Street in Racine and buy this distant farm with the help of bankers with a mortgage loan? I can only speculate that the obsolescence of the file cutting business has left the Horner brothers' business worthless. The railroads, which have been given land to encourage them to extend their lines, are very aggressive in their marketing. John, completely at loose ends, is desperate and grasped at the perceived opportunity. Shennington is on the main line of the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. The family can board the train at the State Street station in Racine and be in Shennington by the end of a long day. John is gone forever from Racine. In 1891, Dr. Naismith invents the game of basketball, and John's nephew, our great-grandfather Alfred Richard, has now taken a job with the city of Racine as trolleyman on the streetcar line. This is at least the 3rd occupation for him. And those were the days of horse-drawn cars. But those days were about to change. This newspaper clipping from the Racine Journal-Times of March 1937 reprints the picture and story of Easter Sunday of 1892. These are the men who operate the first electric streetcars in town, and Alfred's obituary claims he was the very first of these first men to do it. But he doesn't do that for very long either, and the gay 90s are in full swing. In 1893, 2 years after the death of her father, Richard, Al's kid sister, Hattie, marries Henry Ward Blish. The Blish offspring will carry her Horner genes in a different line that we lose track of after the next generation. My father Ken on several occasions talking about Wesley Blish. He was almost the same age as my father and was the only son of Hattie. Doesn't appear he had any sons. Dad never told me about how we were related, and in those days, I didn't care.